Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the next event of the Champions Chess Tour. And also welcome to Gotham Chess Recaps. We've got 16 players competing for $220,000, and if you're wondering why Magnus Carlsen and Hikaru Nakamura were in astronaut suits, it's because it's dedicated to space and space exploration, which is why I'm also wearing this hoodie. You know the drill. The preliminaries, they all play each other, 15 games, and then the top 8 qualify. I've got 5 games to show you, and then I will show you the scoreboard, and we will all move on collectively with our lives. Levon Aronian with the first game of the day, with the black pieces, Shakh, one of the best players of Azerbaijan, hasn't played a lot in this event. It's curious to see what he's going to bring to the table. E4, E5, Knight F3, and he becomes the first person to play what's known as the Philidor defense. Not bad, but very passive. White plays D4, takes, Queen takes D4. So actually, Knight takes D4 is very possible. Queen D4, Knight F6, Knight, and you say, why is he not attacking? Because if he goes Knight C6, White is going to play Bishop B5. White is going to develop another piece, take the Knight ultimately, so it can't take the Queen, develop, and keep developing. So it's one way to play it, but chess is all about options, just like going to the supermarket. Bishop 2 E7, Bishop G5, H6, and finally, by move 11, both sides have castled. Now, clearly when, two people castle on opposite sides, it means that they woke up that day and they chose violence. I mean, what do you want me to say? They chose violence. Someone's not going to emerge out of this alive. Because if they did, if it was a draw, I wouldn't show it. Spoiler alert. So, Bishop goes to E6. Now, how is Levon going to start an attack here? Oh, I know, G4. All right, well, is Mamedyarov going to sit around? Hell no! He's going to play A6, B5. I said someone is going to lose this game. Because I know the result. So, G5. He moves the knight back, and Levon doesn't take, because the thing is, if he takes, there is this. So first he brings a knight, and then he takes, hanging a rook and a bishop. But it's a very tricky position, and after bishop takes, we have rook takes G7 check, king goes to H8. Now at this point, Levon's got a hanging rook in the center of the board, and that's a problem. So he's got to move his rook. He's got to find where it's going to move. He moves it to F5, and his idea is that he wants to go here. But the problem is that now Shakh plays bishop to F6, blocking that threat and attacking the rook. And apparently the computer was trying to tell me that rook H5 is better. And it's better because if this happens, now white plays E5, and if you take, and play something like king G7 or king G8, queen H6. The whole point is you actually are happy losing the rook that way because your queen can get to H6. So Levon chose the wrong square for the rook, and that allowed Shakh to consolidate and now trade off. This is probably the most instructive move that he makes. Notice that he's not taking a pawn with check. Listen, I know y'all at home like, yo, why he not taking that pawn? It's check. Because if you do that, I just go here. A lot of you guys have to ask yourself this question. Now what? It's just because you take something and it's a check doesn't mean it's a good move. Now your knight is hanging, and you're about to get mated. Congratulations. So he plays rook f8, and that's a good move because he's trading off his opponent's most active and powerful piece. And frankly, most annoying. Now we get takes. Levon just keeps going, but the problem is that now he has no attack. It's another important moment of every game. You gotta, transition, through the game. You gotta be like, wait a minute, I'm not attacking anymore. I gotta calm down and find the best move. So Shakh plays pawn takes pawn. Levon continues to chug forward. But now queen g8, it's a very nice move, and it laser beams a2. But of course, if you take a2, you abandon your king's defense, so we get queen f3. It's a tricky move. He's like, you take this, I got this. But the problem is, now, all Shakh has to go is go, bring the rook. You see my rook, okay, what happens when I bring it? Who guards the knight? Levon's only got 3 pieces playing. Levon literally has not moved his bishop. In fact, Levon played here and hung queen a2, and after king d2, queen check, he finally moved his bishop, except the first bishop move of the game hung mate. Bishop c3, king e2, and queen e1. And the game is over, and Shakh defeats Levon Aronian, recent transfer to the American Federation, in a very complicated game. Very complicated. It was, good for white, and it just kind of goes to show you that this is what's going to keep happening. These are 15-minute rapid games with 10-second bonus every move. Pandemonium exists. Our second game of the day is the game between Magnus Carlsen and Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. Magnus Carlsen begins the game with c3. What is that? So, clearly trolling, right? So b6. Now the thing is, when you troll MVL, and he trolls back, because he doesn't actually play b6, the opening that we end up getting is, weird, and it's not what MVL plays, because he either plays the Sicilian or the Grunfeld, and look what happens to the structure. the opening becomes in advanced French. You say, Levy, how did that happen? Well, in the advanced French, you get e4, e6, d4, d5, e5. But the knight is usually not here. So this game takes on a very unique flair. Magnus Carlsen plays h4. It's official. It's now a Super Grandmaster game. MVL here makes a grave error, and frankly, for a while, makes a grave error. He doesn't play h5. And, that allows Magnus Carlsen to basically understand that his opponent's not quite at the same mental fortitude as he is. I'm joking, by the way. I know some of y'all can't detect sarcasm. You're going to be like, that is very rude. It's a joke. Relax. Queen a6, knight e1, and now we see the problem. Well, Magnus Carlsen doesn't know what to do. He plays h5. And now, finally, MVL in a couple of moves says, all right, man, you got me. h6. g5 and h6, and I'm repelling you on this side of the board. Now, MVL a few moves later plays a very fancy move. He plays queen e2. Look at that queen completing the journey. It's the imposter on the ship. It's among all the pieces, but it's threatening the pawn. So Magnus Carlsen doesn't like losing pawns. Losing pawns is bad. An important life lesson. Welcome to Gotham Chess Recaps. So knight to d8, queen to h3, a little bit of rotating, and MVL says, I've had enough. I don't want to get bullied anymore. En passant, knight f6, knight e5. And after queen h5, Magnus Carlsen says, all right, look, I'm down a pawn, but I've got activity. I am compensating the fact that I am down by a pawn with the fact that, number one, I've got very active pieces. Number two, I'm Magnus Carlsen, which is pretty good compensation to have. It's the only player on earth who gets to have that compensation. Bishop d6, rook c1. You say, why would he trade if he's down? Well, clearly Magnus Carlsen is a fan of the Gotham Chess YouTube channel. And he's watched my recent video, which you should watch as well, which is called When You Should Trade Pieces. Something like that. I think it has a question mark in it. Forgot the exact title. But the point is, why does he like this trade? He's down and he doesn't want to trade under normal circumstances. But when this trade happens, MVL's got no rook anymore. So Magnus is able to infiltrate with the rook and plant it on a8. Now here, MVL brought back the knight. And this very natural retreating move proved to be fatal. What? How's that possible? Look around the board. What move would be nice for white to play if it was possible? Meaning, you can play it now, but it would be bad. What am I talking about? I'm talking about knight c6. That move would be nice. To pin the knight, right? Pressure. But the rook takes. So how do you prepare that? Your pieces work together. b5. b5 does three things. Number one, occupies the c6 square. Number two, opens up the b4 square. Number three, I didn't actually have a number three. I think it only does two things. It does those two things. So king e7, knight g6. You said, Levy, you said c6. Yeah, hold on. Black unpinned himself, right? He unpinned himself, so now you can't go knight c6. But you can bring in a second knight. And when this trade happens, remember that thing I said about the b4 square? What's white's worst piece in terms of these three? Piece that's doing the least. You say, that one. No. That guy's pressuring everything. Bishop d2. And on this seemingly innocuous backwards bishop move, MVL resigned the game. What? What is that? What? Why'd he resign? Here's why he resigned. Because he can't stop bishop b4. If he plays knight f7, it's literally going to be mate in a few moves. After bishop b4, knight d6. Like, it looks like he stopped everything. But just check. Again, that b-pawn. If king d7, it's mate. Congratulations, you got checkmated. I love how you lose in these recaps. Like, I'm saying, like, you're great. You're amazing. All right? You're amazing. I gotta tell you at least once every video, right? Thank you for watching. So, bishop d2 and the game is over. But, this was not a troll. This was a mouse slip. Magnus Carlsen said after that c3 was actually a mouse slip. He meant to play the English and enter into the Grunfeld, I guess, or the anti-Grunfeld. So it's the greatest mouse slip of all time, basically, because, well, MVL thought he was trolling, so he was like, I'm not going to get trolled. I don't know why he sounds like that, because he's French. Anyway, let's move on. So this was a game from about the middle rounds of the day. We obviously got the two Russian superstars, the two mad geniuses. I got a lot of love for Jan. He speaks his mind. Big fan of chess and other things. It's Jan Nepomniachtchi is a kind of personality you want to tune in and watch. Dubov brings your eyes to the game, but Nepo is the kind of guy you want to watch, right? You want to watch his games. You want to watch what he has to say. You just want to watch him. You want to watch him play other games. He also streams in Russian, so we need more people like that in the chess world that get eyes glued to them. Now, Nepo plays the King's Indian modern setup. It's not the King's Indian, but yes, that setup. And now we get f4. This is called the Austrian attack with d4, e4, f4. Some Austrian attacks are good and some are not. This one is a good one. So f4, e4, d4, the 3 pawns. Knight f3 and bishop d3. It's a very solid way to meet this opening. The Pierce defense, technically. Bishop g4, h3, take, e5, break in the center, very common. And now Dubov has a decision. Does he take and open this, or take and not open this? He chooses this way. This is the very common way. In fact, this is the reason I stopped playing this line with black. de5, de5, pawn f5. You say, how could one pawn push make you stop playing a line with black? Well, what ends up happening in these lines is that white just castles and stockpiles the pressure on the f-file. You take, you're opening up your king and your bishop, and if you don't take, you just try to create play. What ends up happening is they just get a really good position, and at some point they take. And that's what Dubov does. And Jan plays HG, but he's busted. Like this, and this. So the knight has to move, but now f7 is hanging. And Dubov misses it. No, I'm just kidding. He obviously sees it, but he plays bishop to e7 first, just going for the rook. And if the rook were to move, then f7 is hanging. So Dubov just takes the rook, brings the knight back, trades, and now a nice kind of game from Dubov. When you're winning, how do you convert a position? Well, you centralize your bishop, you attack the knight to kick it out, and you don't allow counterplay. What does my opponent want? Take it away from them. King g7, queen f3. Notice he's not taking. This is here just to stop this. Okay. We got a little bit of counterplay. Nepo's trying to create a little counterplay, so bishop c4 activates the rook. So we get rook f6, g3. Bye-bye. Pawn takes. You say, why is he taking? Well, he opens up his queen, and the more the position opens up, the higher chance of weaknesses. Now he plays rook d6. Why'd he go bishop c4, rook d6? Every move ties together. Every move ties together. It's very interesting to see how they think. Okay, well, this is not complicated. You got to move your queen. Where are you going to move it? This is very active, but kind of stops occupying the position. Defending the position, I should say. So queen goes back to support the rook in its journey to d7, or queen d5. So on bishop e3, of course, you got to move your king. Knight d4. Very tricky stuff here from Nepo. Rook f6, king f6, cd4, cd4. Wait, I said tricky? I count a rook. The other guy does not have a rook. So now, you got to suppress counterplay, right? So Dubov plays queen h5. It's a nice move. This is not actually hanging. Because after rook f5, king e7, check, here, check, here, check, here, check, here, check, here. The game is over. Except Nepo just resigned after this. Dubov calculated this. Very nice win. Dubov just showing the power of the Austrian attack versus the King's Indian. 3-pawn attack. Pay attention. You might need a new tool for your repertoire. So knight f6, knight f3, and this is how you do it. And then you take and you attack with the f-pawn. Keep that in mind. Dubov had a good day. Not to spoil anything, Dubov had a very good day. The next game that I have to show you is egregious. This game, if your kids are watching, tell them to leave the room. Pause now. Tell them to leave the room. This game is... it's an advisory warning. This game breaks all the rules of chess. First of all, it's a Sicilian defense where you put the bishop out on c4. Now, let me be very clear. You are not supposed to do this. I don't care if they're doing it. Let me tell you right now, just because they do it doesn't mean you could do it too. If they jump off a bridge, right, like that thing your parents used to tell you, well, if your friend were to jump in front of a car, you're like, well, I don't think he would do that. I just think he wants to go to the candy store. But so bishop c4, and so the reason you're not supposed to play like this or bring your queen out is because they'll just attack you. Except Niels did that, and then he just went back and he said, and here, Niels Grandelius played b5. And rather than playing normal chess, developing the bishop, Niels Grandelius played the move rook to a7. Let me be very clear. If any of my students back in the day were to play the move rook a7, they would not have a coach after that lesson. If they played rook a7, rook d7 in the middle of an opening, they would no longer have a coach. He just does it. He just does it. And as the game develops, he just leaves the rook there. He just acts like it's normal. He doesn't do anything with the rook. It just sits there and guards his position. And then finally, you know, they both start transferring knights into each other's territory, looking to create some sort of attack. One guy takes a bishop. The other guy takes back. We get king h7, king to b1. Remember, like, a couple of games ago, there was opposite side castling. Someone's not going to emerge alive. a5. Knight to d5 in the center. Bishop takes, queen c7. One guy is about to uncork some nasty stuff. But at this point, white is better. White's got to play. What the? Yo. See what this guy's doing? f3, g4, h4. Like, we gotta get moving. What is this? Why are we? What? We want the. Okay, I mean, I get it. I see you, Jordan. Okay, fine. You want a pawn. And Neil says, take it, but get your knight out first. But now I'm gonna guard. Take my b pawn. Jordan says, okay, it's a free pawn. Rook b8. You playing with fire, Jordan? You playing with fire? Queen a7. I'm coming. Bishop b3. He says, you got no attack. Bishop d. Oh yeah. Knight c4. You got no attack. Wait. Oh, Jordan had to defend his position a little bit first. Actually, here Jordan was doing quite well. But then once he hung e4 and the board opened up, knight f2. Whoa. Whoa. Okay. I mean, remember this rook? This rook from a7? It's the hero. And that rook finally moved again. After everything got traded, queen g1, and that rook finally moved again. And it threatened mate. And that mate cannot be stopped, because after b4, rook a1 check, queen d1, white resigned. White resigned because after king c4, rook c3, your only move is queen to c3. After you lose a queen, listen, I'm no scientist, but I think that Niels Grandelius would beat a guy. Niels Grandelius would beat a guy up a queen. Now, these guys are very good. So, maybe Jordan would make it interesting. That's a joke. It's mate in 9. Not that he might see the forced mate, but I think he'll win up a queen. So, a weird game. I mean, I don't know what Niels was doing here. Look, sometimes I just show the game. I don't know what you want me to say. All right, you and I just look like, okay, cool. So, Niels wins. And for the final game of the day, I saved the best for last, ladies and gentlemen. Let me roll up my sleeves. We got Anish Giri with the white pieces. We got Magnus Carlsen with the black pieces. Whoever wins this game is going to tweet some shite at the other. So let's go. e4, c5. We have a Maroxy bind Sicilian. So this is when white plays e4, c4. Black plays the Sicilian, the accelerated dragon with e4 and c4 being played against them. We get d6, takes, and bishop g7. This is all very normal, all theory so far. In this case, sliding the queen back is completely fine, because these pawns repel black's forces. Black's got a couple of plans in this position. Number 1, b5 break. Number 2, d5 break. Number 3, no, I lied again, I don't have a number 3. No, there is one, f5, queen a5, knight d7. There's a lot of fluidity in the position. That is not what got played. I apologize. I just clicked the square. a5. Okay, that's nothing of what I just said. Bishop e3. But Magnus Carlsen kind of invents his own way of playing. Oh, there's knight d7. I just said that was going to happen. Trades the bishop. Queen d4. King g8. Rook d1. Queen b6. Let's trade queens. Okay, we have an endgame. Knight, bishop, rook, 2 rooks, 7 pawns. Knight, bishop, 2 rooks, 7 pawns. At this point, it's about space advantage and who transforms the position better in their favor with trades. f4. Take space. f5. Should you take that? Should you push? Should you defend it? He chooses to take. Magnus Carlsen chooses to take with the rook instead of taking with the pawn. That's one transformation. So now we have these beautiful cascades. Meanwhile, Magnus Carlsen has the peanut gallery of a pawn structure here. 2-2-2. Like some sort of battleship or something. So g5 tries to break. Bishop d3. And Anish just ignores this and attacks e7. So this is very passive. Knight e4. And now, okay, another transformation. Bishop for knight. Knight versus bishop endgame is usually better for the bishop. It just is. The bishop controls a lot more squares. Knight can be stopped very easily. Now we have this. We get the 2 and the 3 versus the 2-2-1. And here, Anish Giri plays a move, rook h4, which attacks the h7 pawn. Magnus Carlsen thought for a while here, he's only got one way to stop this, and it's to play knight g6, getting the bishop in the way and offering a trade. Now, probably Anish won't do that because bishop is better than knight. He'll go here. The game will go on. But Magnus Carlsen gives the pawn away and then plays a4. Take, rook e2 defending. So Magnus Carlsen just gives the pawn. He says, I don't need to hang on to my pawn. What's more important to me in this endgame is activity. My activity is going to hold the game for me, and I'm going to draw. Magnus Carlsen is playing for a draw. Like, at some point, you can't play for a win. He's playing to hold the game. Or is he? Rook h8. Okay, so Giri takes. That's a position with 5 passed pawns. You ever seen that? This is a pass pawn. That's a pass pawn. That's a pass pawn. That's a pass pawn. And that's a pass pawn. Pass pawns are pawns that have no enemy pawns preventing them from going forward. In this case, you have bishops, rook, and whatever. But if it was just an open board, the pawns can just go. So they're considered pass pawns, right? So bishop d5. So let's see how Anish is going to win this. It's got to be a combination of pushing these bad boys and pushing this homie. Now, at this point, you got to be thinking, who needs to trade what? Anish Giri would love a rook trade. A rook trade wins the game without even any thinking, probably. Although these pawns are a little bit scary, the 3 pawns all pushing are going to be a lot better. So he's slowly advancing. That's what he's doing. He's slowly advancing. All right, okay. And now he takes this, because he knows that after rook d5, rook e4, he's going to be up 2 pawns. This is not a loss because he's going to trade the rook. So endgames are all about these transitions. You got to be confident in your ability to transition and simplify, like with fractions, all right? They say 5 out of every 4 people are bad at fractions, right? So, you know, you got to be confident in your ability to simplify. So he does, and then he just goes right back. I was kind of hesitant when I saw this. I was like, why is he giving himself 1-1? I like the 2, but now we get e5, rook a4. This is the confidence. Again, noticing that even though you get this, you're still winning. This is a winning endgame. The 2, you cannot stop both pawns. They're too far apart. That's the beauty of the distance of the pawns, right? A and H, almost like his initials. So he goes for this trade. Now he plays h4, knight out, rook a4 again, and he pushes his king up. Magnus says no trade. Anish says, let's do it. Let's do it, Magnus. Come on, Magnus. He says, no, okay. Rook c7, let me infiltrate. Bishop back. That threatens mate. Checkmate is a good thing when it happens to you. What? Not, you know what I'm saying. All right, you know what I'm saying. Rook a3, king g4. Knight comes in to block the bishop. And here, Anish Giri played king to f5. Now the move king to f5 threatens to take, and just be up 2 pawns. And that's winning because even if it was pawn, king, rook versus rook and king, black is too far away. Like, this king versus this pawn it's going to be a win more often than not, if not all the time, because it's just so far. If you bring the king over here, oops, I just highlighted my my streamers. What was that? Connect? That was cool. If the king is over here, then it's a lot closer, right? So king f5, Magnus plays knight b4. Oh my god, Anish, tragic. Blunders a pawn, bishop e4. Oh my gosh, Anish Giri set a trap. He did not lose his pawn. The a pawn is a poison apple because of king back to where it was. And the king has a mating net around it. The black king has no moves. And rook h7 is unstoppable. Rook h7 is unstoppable. Rook g2 check, you just take. You always look for checks. He had no plans of going forward. He set a trap. Now, for Magnus, he could have not fallen into it, but still the position is extremely unpleasant. And here Magnus Carlsen resigned. And Anish Giri literally tweeted a minute after this game was done. And he tweeted, happy anniversary. That was in the... Anyway, Anish Giri defeats Magnus Carlsen. Unbelievable. Who would have thought? And this, ladies and gentlemen, is your score after the first day of action. A couple of players you might have not heard of. Pichot, last place. The Argentinian #1. He was a wild card winner. Obviously a guest at these 2,700 events, so hoping to see him get a couple of nice wins. He had a couple of rough games today. Mamizarov, the new addition, they're in the 8th place spot. Perhaps Wesley So and Jan Nepomniachtchi, the 8th and 12th place guys. Sorry, the 9th and 12th place guys, not in the top 8, but still 10 more rounds to go, which is crazy. These guys have to play 10 more games against each other. And Anish Giri, oh, you beautiful man, Anish. 4 points out of the first 5 with a win over #2, Magnus Carlsen. Coverage will continue every single day at 12 p.m. Eastern. That is 22:30 in India. That is it 5 or 6 hours ahead in Europe now? Whatever, you guys know, the tournament's held in Europe. Well, technically it's held online. So look! Enough. Welcome back to Gotham Chess Recaps. I look forward to making all these videos for you in the next few days. Give a like, leave a nice comment. You're amazing. I'll see you tomorrow.